Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I am Paul Umid and I'm sitting 2.5 weeks out from my first powerlifting competition in almost 3 years. And if you've been following along, we posted a video a few weeks back of me 10 weeks out doing a squat session. We posted a deadlift session. I'm going to be posting my last heavy lifts heading into this competition. So I'm going to take you through my full deadlift session, the warm-ups and what it takes for me to get ready to pull a heavy single on the deadlift, and into my assistance work, what keeps me healthy heading into these last 2 weeks. The assistance work is going to look a lot different than it did the last time we posted a deadlift video, and the warm-ups are going to look a lot different. There's a lot more focus on rehab and getting me ready to lift and ready to move because my body is beat up. I'm a little bit injured. So this is going to look a little bit different than what you would anticipate a powerlifter's peaking program to look like. But this is what works for me, and these are the things that I personally need. Started off the session with a 10-minute walk. I woke up today at 5 a.m., was right at my desk, 5:15 with a coffee, worked until about 7, had my breakfast, drove to the gym. I needed to move around. It's a little unsafe for me to hop under a bar without moving around and limbering up the joints, getting warm. So before I did any of my warm-up rehab work, I got in a 10-minute walk. Not to mention getting in some steps during the day. It never hurts. From there, I started my breathing drills. The goal for these breathing drills is for me to allow my rib cage to expand and to allow my hips to relax. I started off with a side-lying pelvic tilt where I'm lying on my right side only. The goal with this is to leverage gravity a little bit. So by compressing the right side of my body, it's allowing me to focus on expanding the left side of my rib cage, which is an area where I really have trouble breathing into. So all I'm doing with this is I'm breathing in lightly through the nose, exhaling fully through the mouth, and trying to draw in my belly button and engage my deep abdominal musculature. I'll do 3 sets, 5 breaths per side. From there, went into a quadruped breathing exercise. And what you'll notice here is that I am a little bit above parallel in terms of the angle of my knee and hip. So if it was a squat, I'd be above parallel in the squat and I start there. And then I sink back to where my hips are a little bit closer to the wall. The other thing you'll notice is my knees are elevated on a pad, but my elbows are on the floor. This again leverages gravity. So because my torso is lower than my hips, it allows me to focus on drawing air into my upper rib cage, which is an area where I struggle to breathe into. And one of the reasons why expanding and contracting the rib cage is so important is the better the rib cage is able to move, the more fluidly the shoulders are able to move, the more appropriately you are able to stack that rib cage on top of the pelvis. So if you have a very restricted rib cage, it's going to impact how well you can brace. And when we're deadlifting, the brace is the most important piece of the lift, because if you have any power leaks through that torso or that core, you're going to miss the lift. So with this quadruped breathing, again, inhale through the nose, fully exhale through the mouth, drawing the belly button in and trying to engage that deep abdominal musculature. I do about 1.5 minutes in that above parallel position. Then I sink my hips back into a below parallel position, trying to expand my rib cage and allowing my hips to relax. From there, I go into a supine cross connect. So what I'm doing here is you'll see there's a yoga block against the wall. My foot is on the wall. I'm pushing through the wall by squeezing my glute and trying to maintain contact with my medial heel and my big toe. And then I'm bringing that opposite knee up and I'm bringing my opposite elbow to my knee. My range of motion isn't very good here, but what I'm trying to do is create a rotational moment through the hips. Again, breathing in through the nose, expanding the rib cage, breathing out through the mouth, fully trying to draw my abdominals in and engage that deep abdominal musculature. Here we're looking at hip extension. So trying to get more hip extension on that leg that's pushing into the wall, and then creating a little bit of rotation through the hips with that cross connect of knee to elbow. From there, I go into a half kneeling respiratory pullback. This is a very, very, very important warm-up drill for me, trying to get more hip extension. So that back leg, I'm actively squeezing the glute. I'm reaching that contralateral arm forward, trying to create some rotation, some internal rotation in that back hip. At the same time, I am pulling with that front leg's adductor to keep my hips square. So I'm getting a ton of adductor on that front leg. I'm getting internal rotation and hip extension on that back leg. And again, in through the nose, fully exhale through the mouth. Every exhale, I'm trying to rotate a little bit deeper into that stretch. Then we go into 90-90. So trying to introduce more rotation through the hips. What you'll see is as I rotate towards that front leg, I'm doing a couple extra reps of internal rotation on that back leg. That's, again, more rotation leads to more flexion and extension. You cannot get hip flexion extension or any joint flexion extension without coupled rotation. So we're implementing rotation into this drill to help really open my hips up. The more internal rotation I'm able to access, the less knee pain that I have. So these drills, these warm-up exercises are specifically geared towards getting me ready to train, allowing me to access the ranges of motion I need to access to get into good positions, but also allowing me to reduce my pain. The final warm-up exercise we're going to do before we hop on the barbell is the Copenhagen cross connect. So what you'll notice is my top leg is bent at 90 degrees and I'm in full hip extension, bridging up through my oblique. And then we're performing that cross connect, bringing the bottom knee to the top elbow. The goal here is to inhale as we reach and then exhale as we cross connect, trying to engage that deep abdominal musculature. This internal rotation coupled with rotation through the cross connect, fantastic way for me to learn to control my pelvis and get a little bit more internal rotation and hip extension. All of these drills combined, I'd be lying if I said this was fast. It took me about 30 minutes, okay? And would I be doing this all the time? Absolutely not. But we're trying to manage pain right now, and we're trying to get me healthy enough to perform the lifts that I need to perform so that I can compete and perform on meet day. Typically, I'll be warmed up 15 minutes on the barbell at the most. But now that we're managing pain, that gets changed around a little bit. When I got on the barbell, I found I still needed a little bit of cueing into internal rotation. So I performed an RDL with a yoga block between my knees, trying to cue internal rotation with hip flexion, hinging my hips back, trying to keep that foot pressure on the inside of my foot, nice and controlled. Just did a couple sets of 8 here, nice and light to get it moving. And then it was right to deadlift. Started off with 70 kilos for a few reps, right to 120 kilos for a few reps. And then from there, it was just singles, trying to conserve as much effort as possible. I went up to 170 kilos for a single, 220 kilos for a single. And then my last warm up, I jumped right from 220 kilos, which is 484 pounds, right up to 595 pounds or 270 kilos. That moved really well. I was still having a little bit of knee discomfort on that one. So had to regroup a little bit before the top set, but I knew I wanted to take around 300 kilos for my top set today. What I figured out is that with the way that my feet are positioned, if I turn my toes out just slightly, only 5 to 10 degrees, it reduces the amount of torque through my knee. So I made that adjustment on my top set and was able to absolutely smoke that 300. My best double on the deadlift is 300 kilos. And I absolutely felt like today I could have doubled that weight. So that tells me that I'm in a really good position to perform well on meet day. So despite the knee issues, I'm still in a good position and I'm really confident about my ability to perform. From there, we back down to some technique work. So back down to about 80% of that top set, which was 240 kilos. And I did 3 sets of 2. Filmed 2 of them, 2 sets of those. And these felt really good. I felt really locked in and I felt like I kind of figured out my positioning a little bit better. With the knee pain, I did narrow my stance on the deadlift a little bit and that's kind of changed my mechanics. But by doing the down sets much lighter, it really helped me dial things in, feel snappy off the floor and really consistent through the lockout. I really like doing cluster sets on the deadlift or sets with very shortened rest periods. So I actually did these doubles with less than 3 minutes rest. That allowed me to be a little bit more rushed. And personally, when I feel a little bit rushed and I don't have to think, it allows my body to self-organize and it really, really forces me to be in good positions. And so whenever I do shortened rest periods on my down sets, I always feel better the next day. And as I sit here a few hours post-session, I have less knee pain than when I walked into the gym, and I have less knee pain than I've had all week. So to have that after a heavy deadlift session is a huge win for me. From there, went back to the RDL with a block. So this has been a staple for me. learning how to hinge into my hip and keep that medial foot pressure. I went much lighter than I have in the past. I only went to 100 kilos, did 3 sets of 10. As you can see on the second set, I wasn't really able to keep that internal foot pressure, and I actually dropped the yoga block on reps 7 or 8, but it's okay. This is what this is for. The yoga block provides immediate feedback, because if I'm not putting that pressure on the inside of my foot, I'm going to drop the yoga block. The other thing it does is it gives me immediate feedback if I'm compensating with my back. So this forces me to really keep the movement in my hips. And I'll tell you what, the pump through the adductors, the hamstrings, and the glutes from this variation using a controlled tempo and a pause in the bottom is amazing. So that proprioceptive awareness by taking things slow, having that external cue has been very, very helpful. This is an example of what my coach does, where she'll turn the training itself into rehab by just modifying certain aspects of the movement to allow me to basically get some loaded mobility work. And it's been a phenomenal way to address my pain, address my movement dysfunctions, and keep me healthy for subsequent sessions. The next exercise we went to is called a Jansen row. So this is an upper back movement, but we're performing it in a specific way. So at the bottom, you'll notice that I'm pausing slightly. In that pause, I'm actually inhaling through my nose and trying to expand my upper back. So to create a little bit more space between my shoulder blades with my respiration, and then I'm contracting into that space. This is a phenomenal way to get more range of motion through the shoulders. Again, it's loaded mobility and using respiration to drive postural change. Something that I wasn't previously exposed to with other coaches, but with Danny, she does a fantastic job blending rehab with training. It's also one of my favorite exercises. The upper back pump that you're going to get from this exercise is huge. Traps, rhomboids, lats, everything gets locked in. You leave there with a huge pump. And especially the way that I deadlift, because I deadlift with my shoulders rounded forward, this rowing pattern is almost exactly the same positions as I'm in when the bar is on the floor. So as I get stronger with these, I get better at holding my positions off the floor in the deadlift. Right now with my knee pain, I had to make an adjustment. So Danny had programmed me to do some Bulgarian split squats. Bulgarian split squats are a challenge because they force me to be in hip extension on that back leg and hip internal rotation on that back leg. Those are the two ranges of motion which trigger my pain. So what I did and what we had strategized was to start with some B stance RDLs with a contralateral load. What this did is it allowed me to rotate into that front hip and open up my glutes, which did a fantastic job freeing up some range of motion. With these 3 sets, I actually felt more open through my hips, which allowed me to actually load the Bulgarian. I haven't been able to Bulgarian split squat in weeks, but today I used a different variation, which you'll see here, which is called a Hatfield Bulgarian split squat. A Hatfield Bulgarian split squat is essentially just a Bulgarian split squat where you're holding the rack. It allowed me to unload a little bit and shift my center of mass back without irritating my quad tendon. To be able to do this was a fantastic win, and it actually really alleviated my pain. I just did 3 sets of 15, nice and controlled, 2-second pause, body weight. It actually was really hard. And afterwards, I had no knee pain. Even though this movement pattern triggers my knee pain, to be able to perform the movement in an assisted and controlled fashion alleviated my knee pain. It's just another indication that sometimes those movements that cause us pain should be the ones that we integrate into our training to alleviate the pain. Many people will opt to avoid pain triggering movements. Personally, I've always been of the mind that we modify the movement to alleviate pain, work through it, and then we can remove that pain a little bit faster. The last movement of the day, this is a breathing drill, again, to relax the body, kind of cool down, and also to recapture a little bit of internal rotation. So what you'll see is that my feet are up on the wall. I'm a little bit above parallel, so at around 110 degrees of hip flexion, yoga block between my knees. What I'm doing here is I'm pushing through the wall with my medial heel and my big toe on both sides, very lightly, inhaling through the nose, expanding the upper rib cage, exhaling through the mouth fully, drawing the belly button in, activating that deep core musculature. The first set here, first set of 5 breaths, is really tight and very uncomfortable. That second set, I can feel myself relaxing into the hips. That third set, nice and loose, and I can get up and feel fantastic. I felt really optimistic about this day. I have had significant knee pain day to day leading into these last few sessions, but because of the proactive approach I've taken with my coach, we've been able to specifically identify the movements that alleviate my pain and have me feeling better. We've doubled down on those, made sure that I'm not spending too much time sitting at my desk without getting up and walking during the day. Those two things put together, along with an elongated warm-up and some really specific cues on the movements that we're performing, I am fully confident that I will be able to get to the platform pain-free and able to perform. I'll be filming my bench press session on Friday, which will be the last heavy bench session. And then on Monday, we're going to do the last squat session of the prep. I'm going to bring you guys along with me. It's not the most exciting, but it gives you a little insight on what it takes to bring an old busted up meathead back to the platform. And don't forget, I mentioned it in my last training video that I posted. My ultimate goal is to set the all-time world record for a Canadian in the squat, which currently stands at 826 pounds. I will be the strongest squatter in Canada before I hang up my singlet and retire from powerlifting. And that's going to happen in December. This first meet is a step in the right direction to be able to gather data, shake off some rust, have some fun lifting weights, and fall back in love with the sport of powerlifting. Thank you so much for listening. Please make sure to like, share, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, and drop a comment below if you're interested in seeing some different things or learning more about some of the movements that I'm performing. Have a great day.